Okay, hi, Low No Nation, and welcome to this week's conversation for the Low No Drinker podcast. Today I am talking to the lovely Colette Safhill. Safhill? I always feel like I'm saying it wrong. Safhill. I do apologise. The lovely Colette Safhill. I won't edit that out because it's real and I made a mistake, and we're all human and that's what we do. And Colette's the kind of person that will be okay with that.
And it is a weird
Colette is the founder, the creator and founder of Myth Drinks and Goat. She created both brands at the same time because she's part genius, part insane. She has won many awards and accolades, including the Great Taste Awards, the IWSC. The list is very long. And I wanted to get Colette on for a while now to talk to her because she is a woman that I truly admire, both for her business prowess and her creativity, and for what she stands for outside of just making fantastic drinks that everybody seems to love. Colette is very passionate about the things that she holds dear to her heart, and admirably so, she shares that and shouts about it and talks about it from the rooftops to let people know what's important to her and what they can do to help with the matters that she finds affect us all, whether you're in the low-no industry, whether you're a woman, wherever you're finding yourself. So I'm really excited to have a chat today to Colette. So thank you very much for joining me, Colette. How are you today?
Nice to see you. Thanks for asking me. It's nice to hear those things. I more often think I'm my own worst enemy, and so it's quite nice to hear that someone admires me. Well, today's a good day. I've got matching fingernails, toenails, matching underwear, got lipstick on, all happening. I think you can judge a lot from that. All's good. All's good. Just busy, as we were saying before you started recording. Just always busy. There's the businesses, the kids, the house, the dog, the cat, the friends. Always stuff.
Yeah. Well, first of all, can I say thank you very much for the matching toenails, fingernails, and underwear and lipstick. I feel privileged to be worthy of such coordination.
I know. I always think it's quite nice. I do a lot of yoga, and first thing in the morning when I do my sun salutation, there's something about putting my hands down next to my feet and it all matching that makes me think my ducks are in a row. It's like my marker for it's all going to be. Yeah, it's my marker for it's all going to be okay. Whatever happens today.
Whatever happens, I'm good. If I get hit by a bus, then it's all good because everything is matching and coordinated.
And today I've got matching underwear on, so today is the day. Right?
Today is the day. Bring on the bus. I can handle it. Fantastic. Well, Colette, I'm going to start where I start with everybody with you, if that's okay, which is to find out a bit about your own backstory. You've created these two amazing brands, and we will speak a little bit about how well they've been received by the public and by the industry. But that was quite an achievement to create two brands simultaneously into an emerging market that, it's been a couple of years, but still the growth is quite eye-opening and quite challenging. So what was the journey that led you to decide that it was a great idea to create Myth?
Okay, so I don't drink alcohol. My mother died alcoholic when I was a child, and I began drinking myself when I was about 18, 19. Had a real penchant for it, got really good at it really quick, and by the time I was in my late 20s, I was in rehab. So my drinking was, and it was alcoholic. I consider myself to be alcoholic. So when I stopped drinking, I stopped, and I don't drink at all. When I met, excuse me, I got a bit of a cough. When I met my husband, he used to drink, and everyone knows Andy. Everyone smiles when I say my husband. He used to drink like any businessman drinks, and when he asked me to marry him, I said no because of how he drank. It wasn't a problem, but I just didn't want alcohol kind of in the house or around me, so he never had another drink. So as a couple, we don't drink. And we were out at a do with his work, and someone offered me, it was like a plastic cup of Fanta or something, and I had like my good dress on and my high heels, and I wanted something pretty, I wanted something relevant, and I didn't want different, I felt quite infantilized. So the next morning I said to Andy, I'm going to make a drink. How hard could it be? Really hard, actually. If anyone's interested, if anyone's listening, it was really, really, really hard. And that's kind of how it started. It appeared not to occur to me in that moment that I've never made a drink, I've never worked in FMCG, I've never made anything actually. I've never been in marketing, I've never been in sales, I didn't even have an Instagram account, and I didn't seem to think that was going to be a challenge. So that's, and in my defence, Andy didn't tell me to shut up and go back to sleep, which I often think would have been the kind thing to do looking back at it now. And he just said, "How can I help, darling?" So 2 years later, this is where we find ourselves.
That is, a lot of people are in this industry and we're solopreneurs or solo creators, but it just goes to show you're never really alone. If you've got the support of a partner who's actually going to be there and be beside you. And I've met your Andy. Ellie is absolutely lovely, and I can see how supportive he is, but he does it in his own way, in his own right. And he's like, look, I'm here, I'm doing this stuff. I haven't got a clue what she's on about half the time, but I'm here to support her. And I love that. It reminds me of my own husband, who's completely oblivious to most of the stuff that goes on in this world, but is learning slowly and starting to champion what we're doing, which I think is a lot of people are slowly starting to recognize what's going on with this low no movement, with the industry, the way that people are living. It's no longer a hushed thing said in corners. It's fewer and fewer times that you're going to the party and you're getting a plastic cup of Fanta. Unfortunately, it does still happen.
Yeah, in fact, I was at a local council thing before Christmas, and at the end, this was a full day event, a council-sponsored event to do with our combined authorities. We're getting a mayor up here. I live in North Yorkshire, and at the end of the day, there were 2 tables set out, and it reminded me of my student days. They were just piled high with bottles and cans and all those things. There wasn't a single non-alc option. In fact, to get anything non-alcoholic, I had to walk past the tables, through that room, into the next room and get some water off the bar. And when I raised it, apparently I was a difficult woman. So it hasn't got better everywhere, unfortunately. Obviously, it didn't stop me raising it.
And isn't it ridiculous that you get labelled as difficult just for asking for what you want?
Yeah, I know.
Just for asking for what you'd want and what you would like.
I was questioning as well the use of taxpayers' money at a work event to end up with a student table. And maybe that's no longer relevant. Maybe that shouldn't be the norm. Why would somebody want booze at the end of a work event? Why would that be the normal? That doesn't make sense to me. But then there's a whole kind of killjoy, and you can't expect everyone not to drink because you don't, and not everyone's got a problem, and all of those things. I'm just asking, why is it normal? And then why do people feel the need to defend it so much? That's always interesting to me.
You're right. People can get very defensive about it. And it's almost as if by you deciding that you're not drinking, and whether it is somebody who has been through similar story to yourself and who can no longer drink and chooses not to because it will be detrimental to their life, or whether it's somebody who's more like me, who's just gone, do you know what, I just don't want this crap anymore. It's just not doing it for me.
Yeah, Andy's just
or like Andy, absolutely. Whoever it is, you find that even the other day I was at my local pub and I was at the bar and I was asking, what alcohol-free drinks they had. And some bloke who I'd never met decided that he should pipe up and, give it the usual, what's the point in that? Oh, I wouldn't bother with that, love. I didn't ask you.
Yeah, thank you for your opinion. You can take it off with you now. I just don't understand. It reminds me, when I was 14, 15, in fact, up until I was mid-30s, I was vegan. So long before it became fashionable. But I remember those years with being vegetarian as well. I'm not vegan now, but I remember those years being vegetarian as well. And you got like a soggy risotto that everybody had an opinion on. It was kind of less than. It was less than everyone else's. Someone made a fuss about finding it for you. It was presented badly, and then everyone felt they could comment on it. And AF, it feels a little bit like that at the moment. And part of what I wanted to do was to elevate what I made into something really beautiful. And kind of not less than, not competing with particularly, just an alternative. People now expect to go and find a completely plant-based menu wherever they go. So why wouldn't you have an alcohol-free menu as well?
Absolutely. It is just it's now becoming the same, because I come from a hospitality background, and you're right, you wouldn't open a bar or a restaurant without having a decent vegan and vegetarian option. So not just one or the other, you have to have both. And gone are the days where it's okay to get away with just a nut roast, and you're just like, oh, please get that
I
thing
had
away from.
a lot of my roast in the 80s.
But now, it's expected, and if you don't have a decent low-no offering for people, you're going to start losing business. And bars and restaurants already are. And it's such a shame, because I love a pub. I absolutely adore going to the pub and sitting. And I know that some people say that, it's not a place that you need to go to. There are other places that you can go and hang out. But I spent most of my life going to pubs. I have good memories. It wasn't all bad. And I actually want to go and keep making some good memories without the alcohol.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
should be able to have something that I could choose from without having to have the same plastic cup of juice as my kids.
Yeah, and it's about making memories you can remember as well, and you don't have to have a particularly defined problem in order for you to lose some evenings, lose some days, maybe make choices you wouldn't otherwise make, or not choices, or outcomes, and things like that. So there was some research I saw recently, and I'm going to misquote it, and I can't remember what it was, but it was along the lines of 10 women, out of every 10 women surveyed, 7 would have had an alcohol-free option if it was available and relevant to them. And I think there's something about that, about choice, about, so if you're a wine drinker, maybe you want an AF wine, if you're a beer or a cider or a spirit drinker, but about there being choice, not just being that you sit down for dinner, you're the token vegan, and all you can have is a mushroom risotto, and you better be grateful for it. Yeah, and actually you don't like mushrooms, or you don't like rice, or you don't, but that doesn't matter, because they've given you what you were told, and don't be difficult. And I think there's still a little bit of that, particularly in Yorkshire where I am. I mean, I've been sober 24 years now, which is a long time, and I've seen a lot of change. I've seen a lot of change in the narrative. I've seen a lot more visibility. But as with all change, not all of it feels as positive as it might be, and you have to wonder who the stakeholder is in it sometimes.
Yeah, so no, I was going to ask you that, because I know that you travel a lot. You're always off to different fairs or different expos, whether you're displaying, you're talking to people, meeting with people. And then you mentioned being in North Yorkshire and what things are like up there, because that area is very much, sort of, it has a reputation and a history with alcohol. It's very close knit as part of the community. Having a pint there is sort of a rite of passage, or is that sort of way that you grew up, which is similar in lots of places around the UK.
Yeah.
But I just wondered, being somebody who travels a lot and who sees a lot of different places, what your sort of experience and take is on the way that things are changing. Do you think it's because, there's a lot of talk about how quickly everything's happening and how it's growing and it's expanding. But I was reading another article by a chap whose name I can't remember. And his point was that actually things aren't moving as fast as people think they are. That he was saying that he doesn't think that the low-no movement is actually going to ever be of any challenge or concern to big alcohol, and that people are just making a fuss about it. What have you seen in your travels? Is there anything to what this chap is saying, or is he just talking out of his backside?
I think, although I live in Yorkshire now, you can tell by my voice I'm from the south, I do travel a lot, and I think there could be an argument for what people actually want to drink. So I think people are very brand loyal, and they want what they know. So if you're going to drink Heineken, you'll have a Heineken Zero. If you're going to drink Gordon's, you'll have a Gordon Zero, because it's known. And I think that's the way maybe big alcohol can control the sector. I've got some real issues with it, because if you've got a bottle of, we'll say Gordon's for example, you've got a bottle of Gordon's and you've got a bottle of Gordon Zero, they look exactly the same. So the Zero is actually advertising the alcohol, and I've got a real problem with that, because that's kind of like that's not fair, is it? It's implicit messaging. I don't think that's right. Do I think it's a big movement? Yes, I do. And do I think it will change, particularly with the next generation? And yeah, I really do. Will it look exactly like this? I don't know, because at the moment, all our non-alc a lot of our non-alc is going through the same distribution channels and endpoint customer channels as alcohol. So I really don't know, and I hear a lot about no low light, and I just don't understand that. I can't think of very many areas of consumer consumption whereby somebody makes a choice and then the messaging around it is so complicated that you don't know what you've got. My daughter, for example, is celiac, and if I go to buy her something gluten free, it will say gluten free on it. And it will have no gluten in it. Whether because she's celiac or because someone chooses not to have gluten, it still says that. But with non-alc, we seem to have this no low light space, which is all one space. Well, if you drank an entire bottle of Myth or an entire can of Goat, you won't get pissed at the end of it. If you drink an entire bottle of low alcohol spirit or like light spirit that's 20%, you'll be shit faced. That's it's quite an obvious thing, you know. And I spent nearly a year in a rehab, and I was on legal section for a while, and I get to choose how much alcohol I do or don't have. That's my choice. Shouldn't be driven by the sector, shouldn't be driven by someone else's commercialism. It should only be my choice. The same as, you know, I often say if you've got a peanut allergy, if you have half a peanut, you'll still have a problem. And it's a bit like that. And I'm concerned that somehow the messaging is getting lost, like the point is getting lost. I think no alcohol is a valid sector. I sell a lot in the US, and in the US, my sober voice is actually is well received. But in the UK, I've been told more than once to tone it down because actually nobody wants to hear sober, and I just don't think that's true. I think the industry is trying to curate a message away from that.
Yeah, interesting, because I often have this conversation with founders because there is this light area that is really starting to take off, but it is a very complicated area for people because it's very hard for people to know what they're consuming if it's mid-range once you've perhaps put it in a cocktail, you've added it to a mixer or whatnot. It begs the question who it's for and how it will be used, because there is obviously room to serve people who are completely alcohol free and they don't want any booze whatsoever. And then there are the people who still drink and are still happy to consume and they want to have their 40% gins or whatnot. But then this space in the middle, I'm interested if you think that there is legs in it for the long term for those people that might be thinking, well, I do still drink, but I don't want to drink very much. I'll have a 10% gin.
That Lambrini space, you know, like light wine or that kind of age, isn't it? Or baby champagne, whatever.
I knew it, so yeah.
But I don't drink, so I can't really answer what people who do drink want. But in my mind, if you want a half percentage of a spirit, would you not just add more mixer? Do you know what I mean? And if you've got to take a calculator with you to the bar to figure out if you're going to be too shit-faced to drive, then that doesn't make sense to me. And I do wonder if we're not going to end up with a bit of a problem where people end up drunk behind the wheel or they've had more than they realised. I mean, I was reading a calculation the other day. I just saw it on LinkedIn about how to calculate the ABV of what you've got in your glass once you've mixed it. And it was really difficult, you know? So maybe I can understand if it's something like a beer or a lager or like something that's come to you in a glass, like ready done. I can understand that if you wanted the same but light, like you used to get a lager tops or something, you know, or a shandy, or I can understand that. And there's always been a place for that, but it's always been known what it was, and it was always called something a bit different, and it was always, and I don't fully get now how you can have a light spirit on the same shelf in the supermarket as an alcohol-free spirit. I don't see how that's safe. Do I think it's got legs? I think anything that sells has got legs, and I think anyone who's got the money for the marketing and the distribution decides what sells. Do I think it's consumer-led? No, I don't. But that's just interesting. Just my opinion.
Interesting. Speaking of sort of the money for the marketing, independent brands are struggling. Independent low-no brands are struggling. And obviously, I don't need to tell you this. You are a woman at the forefront of it all. What is it that you're seeing that's causing such a challenge for these brands? We all know of wonderful founders who have to step away from what they're doing, not because their drinks haven't been successful, but because they've not been able perhaps to scale, they've not been able to meet the demand, which absolutely will blow some people's minds, that there is demand for your product, yet you cannot make enough of it to sell it to be able to stay in business.
Yes.
Is it big alcohols using up all the shelf space? Is it that there's not enough word? Is it that we can't get enough marketing? What is the problem that we're facing for smaller, low-no brands at the moment?
Okay. So that all filtered through my head, with my head saying to me, remember, Colette, don't say anything that's going to blow anything up. Remember, Colette, be politically correct. Remember, Colette, don't cause yourself a problem. So, in really simple terms, a business needs funding and route to market. So you need to be able to sell your product, and you need to be able to fund R&D and the next product runs and things like that, and like the mechanics of the business. I have multi-award winning drinks, in the second year of my business, internationally selling, huge demand, and really at the forefront of what I'm doing. Will I still be in business next year? I don't know, because there's no funding and there's no direct route to market available. It's actually, in some ways, it's a bit more obvious with goat in the energy section for retail, because in order to get into retail, you have to pay a wholesaler, a distributor, a retailer, you then buy the shelf, and this can be tens of thousands of pounds just to get listed. And then once it's on the shelf, they want the retailers want you to sell it for less, although also the wholesalers, the distributors want to buy it from me than less than it costs to produce. And that's obviously not sustainable. And then on top of that, there are millions of pounds worth of marketing spend. So what we end up seeing on the shelves is not choice. It's not choice of the consumer. Is what people are being told they can have, and that is only by the dollar, really. Who's got the money for it? And there is almost no way to break into that. So with with non-alc, I think part of the problem is getting into on trade, which is obviously really struggling right now, and then the same problem getting into retail. There's also a lot of people, this is where I'm going to be really careful what I say. So when I came to this, I didn't have any industry knowledge. So you kind of assume that you'll go to the people who are the consultants who are in that industry, who will guide you. I can tell you there's been an enormous amount of money wasted on that for people who either don't really know or can't be asked to do the work. And I'm not talking a bit of money, I'm talking a lot. And that's quite well known in the industry. So part of the problem is people who want to make money off the back of the new brands, and they're just bleeding the brands dry. A lot of it is to do with the current distribution model and how I just see a monopoly. How do you get into anywhere? And then the funding model, obviously being a woman, is quite a challenge. And being in the north, actually, I was talking to a funder the other day who asked me which bit of Surrey I'm from because of my accent, and I said, "Oh no, I'm in North Yorkshire," and he said, "Is that near Scotland?" And I just, not really. Scotland's near Scotland. So I think there's all of those things. I can understand why people step away from it. It's astonishingly stressful. It's a very stressful thing to be doing, and without clear route to market. But it messes with my head. You think, you make something that people want, that there isn't anything really like it in the market. Everyone wants, and I've got distribution. I've got a 3PL logistical distribution. I've got third-party packers and producers, but I can't get it to the shelf, or I can't get it to the bar. And the bar owners are wanting it as well, and I still can't get it to them. So that's a real challenge.
Because it's a double-pronged attack on the brands, isn't it? Like you say, getting to the supermarkets is one thing, and consumers often will see a brand that's on the supermarket shelves as well and think, oh, they've made it fantastic, they're really big. But actually, that in itself is still only half the battle.
And then the retail don't pay. They don't pay on time. They want loads and loads and loads of product that obviously you have to pay for in advance. And then they've got 120-day pay rate, and even then they're not paying on time. And there's no protection for that. I had a distributor take a huge amount of goat and just not pay for it. And I've chased it through the courts, and there's no protection. That's the thing. There's no way to make people do something even when they've had the product. is really quite, I don't understand. I can understand why the industry isn't working, and it isn't working for anybody. I don't see it's working for any of those parts of the chain.
So, if you were able to wave your magic myth and goat wand, what do you think it is that we need to be doing to be able to make these changes? Not just, oh yeah, it's lovely, let's everybody have a chance, but what needs to change? Because this obviously is not sustainable. We can't keep having an industry that just builds somebody up and then they have to step away, because then there's no longevity in
Yeah,
this.
yeah, and there's no innovation, and there's no. The other thing we're finding, I think, or I'm seeing, is the founders, like the independent founders like myself, are taking huge risks with our lives, our money, and all those things, our families, our time, and then the big outs coming. Oh yeah, that worked, and then just ripping it off. I'm seeing that quite a lot. So with myth, I'm not sure. I think retail, big retail, should have some responsibility here. There should be some part, excuse me, of that process that is dedicated to independence in a way that's sustainable, and not just complicated incubators and things that you can't get on and you have to pay a lot for, and things like bids whereby the people who make the choices actually then pimp themselves out and you can pay them to help you do the bid to get in. That's the thing. There should just be some transparency in that. But with goat, I've been given a lot of thought to this actually. So if you think a can of goat, right, say I need to sell it for £1 in order to keep my business alive, and the endpoint customer wants to pay £2 for it, just say it's that. Because the maths is easy. And then in the way of that, the distributor, the wholesaler, and the retailer all want a 40% margin. Yeah. Well, the only way you can make that happen then for the margins they want is for me to sell it for less than it costs me to produce. So that's not sustainable. I'll go out of business. Or the customer to pay more because, and at the moment, particularly with the cost of living crisis, that's not going to happen. So the more I was thinking about it, excuse me, the more I thought there has to be a better model to get it from me to the shop. So say the community of, I don't know, football mums or rugby players or whatever it is want to buy it. Can't their community buy it directly from me at what I need to sell it for? And then they sell it for what their community will pay for it, and they get to keep the profit. And then they can reinvest that in their own communities, their own tribes, their own whatever it is they do. Yeah? That makes more sense to me rather than the whole of the middle section. Because all of that was set up to make distribution and things and ordering and stuff easier, and coordination of all that easier. But with tech now, I don't think we need that. You can just press a button on the app and go, yeah, I need that, or I need that. Or you can have kind of automated inventory that will just reorder for you, like my Alexa reorders my coffee beans for me. I don't think it needs to be the same now. So maybe there's something about that kind of vertical integration and some of the AI integration so that people can actually get what they need, so that people aren't beholden, like the endpoint like retailer or on trade isn't beholden to these big orders. They're not running out of things they need and they've got too much stock of what they don't need, so they're having to sell it off cheap. They can just have this integrated AI that says, actually, yeah, we're getting through a lot of this right now. It's hot weather, everyone's drinking energy drinks, or it's cold and everyone's drinking coffee or whatever, and just reorder direct from the producers. Yeah, and there's loads of 3PL. That's kind of the pick pack post, like logistics, and most suppliers have got their own now. Producers have got their own, and there's something in that, but that really isn't my field, and I really don't understand. So if someone listening to this does, please reach out and find me and let me know, because I would like to do it differently. What's happening isn't working, and it's not working for anyone.
And what about independent spaces? And what about dedicated low alcohol retailers? Is that a solution that you think should work? Do we need to see more of those? Because obviously we're seeing a few of those close as well. We're seeing lots open and a few close, and then that's sending the message to some people that this isn't sustainable. Whereas what I find quite interesting is that all the founders of the retail spaces that I have heard of that have closed recently have specifically said this is not a failing of the low-no industry. This was a failing of our business and or our model or what we were doing.
Funding model.
It yeah is low-no dedicated bars, restaurants, shops, retail spaces. could that be providing a solution for us for the challenges of getting onto the shelf, so that we say, you know what, screw it.
It's back to that vegetarian thing, isn't it? I can remember having dedicated vegetarian shops, you know, like lentil sniffing with the hippies. And it isn't now, it's just a shelf in the supermarket. You know, I can remember, like my daughter, for example, my daughter's nearly 15, but when she was first diagnosed with celiac, which was 13, 14 years, no, maybe 11 years ago, it was still difficult to get dedicated gluten-free food. Now there's aisles of it. So I don't know. I'm more a fan of integrating. I think the problem I see with some of the dedicated no-low spaces and the bottle shops in the UK, I don't know so much in the States, I don't have a problem in the States, is again, because they have to make money, they have to stay open, they have to keep the lights on. The shelf, and again, I don't know if people know this, but the shelf space is sold, so you just buy a shelf. So before you even put your drink on the shelf, you pay for that shelf. Well, obviously, the brands with the big budgets pay for all the shelves. And then they pay for the big events, and then they pay for the big activations, and they pay for the shop window, and they're the ones at eyeline. So these are the ones that are heavily funded. So then they're the ones that get the traction. So again, it's simply not fair. That's probably what I think. I remember when I was in school in 5th year, I didn't get picked for the netball team. Now, I know I should let it go. Really, I'm 51. Anyway, all these years later, it's probably because I wasn't actually very good at netball. But at the time, I thought it's because Justine wasn't my friend. I wasn't part of her in crowd. Yeah, so she picked her friends. And Nolo does feel a little bit like that. I'll be honest. Those kind of dedicated, I'll pick the ones with the money, I'll pick the ones I'm friends with. It's a very political space, and I'm not a political person, as my husband would probably agree. I tend to say what I think is true in the moment. And that's a bit baffling, and again, a bit sad, because it's not allowing these innovative spaces. And you've got, these huge funding models that are their own business. They've got their own agenda. And they need to see a certain return, and they push in a certain way, and that might not be sustainable. It's like pushing water uphill, and then that fails. And I don't know. I mean, I've thought a lot about going out for funding. I think the only way I'll stay afloat, actually, the businesses will stay available, is if I go out for funding. And I've looked a lot at the models and what they're like. And so in 6 months' time, I might have a different opinion. I might be more informed. But as it sits at the moment, I think when the funders mean that the brands are giving litres and litres and litres and litres of free product away, and then paying for space and paying for the advertising and paying for the visibility, and nobody's actually paying for the product itself, then how can you get independent producers coming in saying, we actually need to sell our product in order to keep our business afloat? And everyone's going, well, actually, but we can have that for free. And that seems to be the core of the problem, I think, as I see it.
It's so much more complicated than people realize, isn't it? There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. People see the posts on Instagram or even in the shops or whatever, and they think, this thing is here and it exists, so they're doing fine. But there's so much going on behind the scenes in terms of creating and sustaining this, because we're just talking now about sustaining it and being able to keep selling your product and getting it into people's hands. But then there's a whole world behind the scenes as well of actually making it so that it can taste amazing and that it can last for a decent amount of time, and all the challenges that go into it, because we've still got to get the consumers to understand why they need to pay for it, what's gone into it to make it special, to make it unique, to make it taste amazing. There's a lot to consider, and I don't think that people really appreciate it. And that's one of the reasons why I want to do this podcast, so that we can let your average consumer know that there is a whole world of blood, sweat and tears, metaphorically speaking, that goes into these drinks that they get to enjoy.
Actually, I think that's what I mean. Another thing that I know, because we've spoken about it before, that I'm quite passionate about, is this idea that there's a right way and a wrong way to do no-low, that everything has to be novel. Everything has to be functional. Everything has to be adaptogen. Everything has to be weird, wacky, and different in order to be valid. And that a very small group of people get to say what is and isn't okay, and what is worthy and what isn't worthy. And that reminds me of like those old men's wine clubs. Do you know what I mean? Where you had to know all this. Was it Gilly Goulding? I seem to remember years ago on the telly. And she was always talking about, oh, she had the nose of oak and she could taste old leather. And people then felt that unless they knew all that, then somehow they weren't, it wasn't available to them. And I saw recently a lady who created a brand called Nice Wine because she just didn't want all of that. She just wanted some nice wine. I'd be sad if no logos in that way because, as I know you know, I said sometimes you just want a fish finger sandwich. You do. You don't want some hand whittled single coffee bean, flat iron, whatever it is. You just want a fish finger sandwich, and that's okay. And I think it would be sad when we're talking about a brand new emergent sector where anything is possible for a very small group of people to feel it's okay to make that elite, to make it, oh no, but this is the only thing that's valid. Unless you're having this, unless you understand the nose on this, whatever this 85 ingredient product might be, then you're not really good enough for this. And I feel very strongly about that because everything should be for everyone, whatever bit of it you want. If you want a Malibu and Coke, drink mine. If you want a shrub with a really complicated mixer, drink someone else's. If you want a Guinness, drink that. But there's no value judgment. It's just what you like. And I just think that's so important. I think people can feel so othered and so devalued and so worthless, and then they don't speak because they're embarrassed. There's shame attached to it. And shame is what was attached to the drinking culture. The last thing we want is it attached to Nolo as well. And that really breaks my heart, if I'm honest. Of all the things, that the most.
Yeah, it's that as you said. So for those who may not have realised, the fish finger sandwich reference was it was in reference to an article that you wrote, a brilliant article that you wrote for Lono Drinker magazine, which was about the premiumization of the sector and the fact that, as you say quite rightly, that wine snobbery. That because I remember quite clearly many times in my hospitality career feeling like I just had to keep quiet because I didn't understand that this it smelled like petrol. Someone said this wine smells like petrol, and that was a good thing. And I was like, I don't understand how petrol is a good thing in wine. And until you've gone through the education and that process, which was fine because it was my job, so I was happy to learn it. But as somebody who just wants to sit back and relax and enjoy a drink, you don't want to have to go through a WSET course just to be able to understand if you can appreciate the drink. Surely the appreciation is the fact that you drink it and you go, oh, that tastes nice. And you're happy with what you have. And I think we need to allow people to make up their own minds on what they like, regardless of what they're supposed to like. There are a lot of flavors that I think we are supposed to feel certain ways about, and we're supposed to think that this is a sophisticated flavor, and we're supposed to turn our nose up at that being too sweet and sugary, and But some people like sweet drinks because that's how their natural palate has lent
I
them.
hear all the
You know,
time
it's
about mist.
it's
People say, oh, but it's sweet. It's got 24 calories in a shot. If you mix it with lime, it's not sweet at all. Is this view people have that somehow one thing has more value than another. Like you say, it's that snobbery. And if I smell wine now, it smells like rehab and shame, if I'm really honest with you. And there are other things I smell, and they smell like they should be on top of my chips. But it doesn't mean someone else doesn't like it. And I really, really don't like that. I think that's just not okay. And also, and I know it's not all about people who are alcoholic and things, but we are talking about a set of drinks that have the ability to fundamentally change people's lives. Not just a little bit, but walking away from alcohol can save lives. It can change lives. For every alcoholic, they touch at least 7 people. We're talking a huge amount here. So let people drink what they want, hey, but label it so they know. And help us get it to the shelves. Help have those choices, because if you can't find what you want, then maybe you will just order the vodka next time. And I think it's really
yes.
sad that's where it gets to. I know when my mother died, next to her on the floor was a bottle of Gordon's, and she died when I was 11. I'm 51, 40 years ago, and I can still remember that bottle. And whenever I see the Gordon Zero bottle, I can still remember that bottle. So there's definitely space to make it different, for it to be different. And think about as well the dangers of that. You know, I'm AA, and I've definitely spoken to a few people lately who have accidentally relapsed, picking up something they thought was non-alc. The other ones are the hard seltzers actually as well, because often the calories are bigger than the ABV on that. They look like a can of pop. And I just don't understand why it's made so difficult for people to make a choice. I mean, I certainly, by the time you get to my age, I don't know anyone who thinks they should be drinking more. Everyone wants to drink less. Everyone quietly says to me in the corner, so how did you stop? You know, even if out loud they're quaffing whatever.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of that. There is a lady I've spoken to recently. I've asked her to write something for me about the fact that everyone's always talking about Gen Z leading the low and no alcohol revolution. And for me personally, I think that yes, of course, a huge percentage of younger people are not drinking, and it's fantastic that they are looking at the impact that this substance is having on their life and choosing a healthier choice. But I also think that the older generations, and I can't believe I have to put myself in a category
Yeah,
called the
I'm
older
not okay with that.
generations, but
Let's recategorize that. Let's just go on to
the mature, the experienced, the wise, the
oh, I don't know. I'm
clever.
gonna have to find a word.
Well, I'll workshop it.
Workshop that one.
You need a word.
Oh, we need a word.
Workshop it. But those like me, because I'm 44 years old, I partied hard, and I, had my socializing and my traveling and my friends, and did all that sort of stuff. And I came to a choice that as an older woman, I just wasn't really into it anymore. I'd reached a stage in my life where I didn't want to anymore. And a lot of the people that I spoke to, a lot of my friends my age, when I started saying that I wanted to cut back on my drinking, they all, like you were saying, went, yeah, do you know what, Denise, I can't cope with it anymore either. I don't want the hangovers anymore. I don't enjoy it anymore. I'm just doing it for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that everybody I now no longer drinks, but by me saying to my friends, I'm cutting back, what it's done is it's visibly given them permission to actually go, do you know what? I want to drink less as well. And then the other thing as well is that we have the money to actually sustain this industry and this way of
Yeah.
being, because whilst Gen Z are shouting on their Instagrams and their TikToks about the fact that they're really loving not drinking as much alcohol, it's those with disposable income who are going to the bars to sit there and to order these drinks and say, actually, can you make me an alcohol-free cocktail?
Yeah.
Can you bring me your alcohol-free wine list? And go to the shops and place the orders, and go to the wholesalers and the retailers and say, send me these drinks. I have money to spend that I
Yeah,
want to
same.
spend
But also, we're
on
the ones
adult
role
drinks.
modeling for our daughters and our sons. You know, I've got 4 children. I know my 2 youngest daughters, they're still at school. And they had like a PSHE lesson, I think they call it now. And this person came in to talk to them about alcohol, and my daughters were the only ones whose parents don't drink. So when the guy came in and was talking, because my youngest daughter Moggy, she was saying, "Well, mummy, honestly, this man came in and said, so who's seen their parents drunk?" She said, "Well, I couldn't believe it." And then she rolled off all these people who put their hands up, and she said, "I wouldn't know what it meant." And things like that, we just assume. We assume it's normal. We assume everyone sees that. Well, my children don't. You know, so we begin to model that differently. We begin to say it's okay. It's okay not to. It's okay to make a choice. You know, we teach all our children, but obviously mine are daughters. Teach my young daughters your body, your rules, your choice. We don't seem to teach that in the same way around alcohol. That kind of, it really is your choice. It's okay to say no. It's okay for someone else to be uncomfortable with it, but it doesn't have to alter what you do. You know, these are real safety. I mean, I'm known for being a bit outspoken, but I always think that alcohol is a gendered weapon. You know, I don't know many women who are improved by it, whose lives are improved by it. You know, the one thing I see a lot when I'm doing tastings is women my own age who are really anti-trying. They're just like, oh my God, I hate my husband, my life, my job, and my kids. You don't take my Prosecco. It's the only thing holding me together. And I just wonder who that's for, who benefits from that, who benefits. And if you look like historically, things like gin as mother's ruin at the turn of the Industrial Revolution, or pink powders given in the 1800s and things like that, it's always been about this subduing. For God's sake, love, be quiet. You know, just go over there, sit down and be quiet. I'm not very good at that, the be quiet bit. So, no. But I do think that, and something else you said actually just triggered a thing in my mind. So Andy, obviously, who doesn't drink because of me, and people assume it's the other way around because it's gendered. People always say to him, "Oh my goodness, you gave up drinking for Colette," and like he says, that's a really telling statement. You know, he loves me. He wanted to marry me. He wanted to spend his life with me. But for so many people, the thought of not having an alcoholic drink, trading for that, would be unthinkable. And Andy's often quite insulted by that. He'll say, "You saying Colette's not worth more than a pint?" Really? You might want to look at that. Whereas if someone said to you, "You could never have an orange juice again," you'd go, "All right then." Yeah. When we really think about these conversations, it's like, well, how embedded is this? How implicit is this? Can we not start to just check it? And when I started Myth, one of the things I wanted was narrative. I've just been speaking to someone actually earlier on today about narratives and stories, and I wanted to write my own story. So when I was drinking back in the day, that story, I didn't have control how that ended. It generally ended really badly, but I didn't have control. Now I do. Yeah, I want that pen. It's my story. I get to write it, and I get to write tomorrow as well. And there's something about that for me. You know, writing those beautiful stories, passing them on to generations, and it being conscious, really conscious. And sometimes I'm a real cow. I can be an absolute arse, to be honest with you. I was a right dick the other day about something. But I remembered that I was actually a bit of a dick because Andy's got to go abroad to work for a bit. And I'm like, well, who's going to look after me? Not, what about you? Are you all right with that, love? It's, oh, God. So if anyone wants to adopt me for the next year or so, you know, have shared custody. And I'm our only child, no parents. Honestly, I just can't look after myself. So
You poor thing. What will you do?
I don't know. I've got the dogs and the kids and the house. What's going to happen? But I was a bit of a dick about it, to be fair. But then today I woke up and I thought, you're a bit of a dick, Colette. And there's no shame attached to that particularly, just a cognitive, don't do that, you love him, check in. Andy, you're all right about this. Let's have a conversation. You know? And that, I think that's, sobriety for me brought that. It's really important to me.
Colette, I'm going to ask you to take us through the range
Oh, yes,
because
indeed.
I've got these amazing drinks here and I want to make sure that everyone who is watching or listening gets to hear about these fantastic drinks and the dedication that you've put into creating this range of alcohol-free drinks that have done wonders. You are one of the most awarded brands, and the fact that you've only been doing this for 2 years is mind-blowing. I don't know
Been busy?
if you've slept in the last couple of years.
No, no.
At
When we
all.
came on, we were talking about how much weight I've lost. Someone said to me recently, "How did you lose all that weight?" I said, "Well, let me tell you." So the drinks. First of all, very first, yeah, I'm going to start by telling you about Gemma Simmons. Okay, so Gemma Simmons owns a company called My Little Graphics Company, and Gem does all of my artwork, and the artwork is stunning. And she's never spoken about. No one knows her, so I want to start with that. So that is loosely based on a Malibu. It's the white cane. It will do anything that most white spirits will do. You mix it in a 25 ml shot. I like it neat over ice with a bit of lime. The dark one next, and that's got 25 calories a shot. Everything I make is vegan. Everything's free from allergens. I actually won the Free from Food Awards as well. That is a dark spice, so loosely think kind of a Kraken maybe. For me, for my taste profile, it does well for a bit of sugar or a bit of fat. So I like it most in an espresso mix with a little bit of sugar syrup. Those two are the RTDs, the first two of a range.
And these are your newest, aren't they? Sort of, you've recently launched these.
So that's the one you're holding up there is a watermelon margarita. It's got a bit of salt on it, and it's got. If you tip it into a glass, imagine the sun and a bikini. Okay, put an umbrella. I like an umbrella, a cocktail umbrella, and one of those flamingo stirrers.
A sparkler as well.
Love it. Honestly, I really do. I was setting my hair on one day with it, and put it into a glass, you know, if you can.
Yeah.
And then the other one is a rum sour. Now, the rum sour everyone likes. Gemma's just finished the artwork on that. It's a Grand Canyon, and that's great in like a whiskey tumbler over ice. Personally, I think each can serves two. I don't think you'd necessarily want more than that in a serve. And both of them, you want to open them and just leave them for a couple of minutes just to let some of the carbonation leave. They're carbonated for the canning
Okay,
process. Just leave a little bit to go.
right.
There is another drink.
Now, do I have to share them? Because you say they serve two,
No,
but
you
do
can
I
have
have
them
to
all.
share?
No,
Because I don't want to.
no, you have them all. It's fine. So I've got another one that's just about to come out now, another spirit. I in a bottle. I
Yeah.
won't say what it is, but it'll be out really soon. I'm just doing the final testing now.
Oh,
I know, and you're the first person to hear that. Nobody else knows.
that's
I've
exciting.
been asked to make it specifically by some of the Canadian outlets that I use, who I sell through. And
Okay.
then there's another two RTDs coming as well. There's just a bit of it's more of a logistical problem actually on how to physically can and bottle those. And they should be,
My
the spirit will be
goodness.
done by the end of next month, and the RTDs will be done by the end of the summer. So then there'll be a range of 3 spirits and 5 RTDs.
Colette, that's absolutely astounding. I can't believe, because I was going to ask you if there are some plans to bring out some more, and I was expecting that you'd say, "Do you know what? I've done quite a lot lately. I'm gonna, take a step back and let these run for a little while." But no, you're like, "Yep,
Done.
banging out another spirit and
Yeah,
two more
done. Yeah,
RTDs."
they're done.
That's really
We
exciting.
have the Spirit and the RTD are actually ready. They're done. They just need to go through trials. And then the other two RTDs, it's just about making sure that I can produce them in a way that's consistent because they're a little bit novel in
Yeah.
their way. So, and then the other brand is Goat, which is an energy brand. There are now
So
4 cans. So the one you're just holding there, that was the original, used to be called Horny Goat. It's now called the original
horny
Goat
goat.
because
Yeah.
retail won't take it called Horny Goat. And all the cans will end up looking like that. They'll end up printed on cans just like that. The other 3 there, they've just had their first trial runs, which is why they're labelled. That one is the sugar-free
Mhm.
groovy goat. All the goats are different. He is mango,
Yeah.
and he's got BCAA, vegan BCAA in him. The one next to him,
Okay.
that one, brand new, just come to market last week. That's the one
Oops.
that's got no caffeine, so it's safe for under 16s.
Okay.
So anyone who wants that can have that, including kids. Again, it's got no calories, no
Mhm.
carbs, no sugar. And that one there is the cherry, so
Fantastic.
that's the funky goat. And that again is no calories, no carbs, no sugar, with a cherry flavour. I use acerola cherry. 100% of my caffeine is natural, comes from coffee bean, no artificial colours, flavours, preservatives, nothing like that, with the exception of the sweetener, obviously. So the original's got
Okay.
normal sugar in it. The other 3 have got sweetener in for people who want to manage their sugar intake. And the UK government doesn't like us to put sugar in things anymore. So they've got sweeteners. And there is a range extension, which I just literally, just before, as we were logging onto this, I just had confirmation that I've got the funding for. I'm just about to make powders to mix in water for athletes for the Goat brand. So I've been asked by some of our ultra runners and the cyclists we work
Mhm.
with if we could produce a range of powders. So we're just doing that now.
Amazing. Like a pre-workout booster.
They will all have different functions, the same as those drinks have different functions, and they will be mixed with water on site. They're also going to be able to be served in several different ways with several different audiences and needs in mind. Goat is all about tribe. It's all about the reality of tribe. Do you know what? If you're not running a marathon tomorrow, fine, don't. But did you get up and get to work on time having been up all night with a vomiting kid? Well done, you. You know, it's that. It's the reality of that. It's yeah. I've got an assignment due in. I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning, getting it done, and I just want some caffeine to make that work for me. And I want to have it in the way that is the least harmful and tastes great. When I made it, I went to my techs who do my development. I just said, can we make a caffeinated drink, an energy drink that, for the most part, isn't bad for me, doesn't taste shit, and actually does what it says it's going to do. So they're all legally claimable positive outcomes, great branding, Gemma's a genius, and they taste great. So that's what they're about. And everyone tells me that I'm never going to make it work because no women own energy drink brands, but well, I do, so we'll see.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. And I think in terms of the taste, I obviously didn't want to open 3 of them that I haven't tried before we had this, so that I could show everybody. And I will put on some of your professional imagery as well, to make sure everyone can see the cans nice and clearly.
Thank you.
But I have tried the original. I tried it at the House of
Yeah.
Happiness event with the wonderful, oh look, the weird thumbs up thing has happened.
I did a
That's
heart
strange.
thing the other day on a call accidentally, and it was really inappropriate. All these hearts came up.
You're like this really serious
It
business
was,
meeting, and you're just
well,
sending
it
love out
was a
there.
funding call, and all of a sudden I went like that, and all these hearts and balloons went. I was like, oh, I'm terribly sorry. I came over really English.
Celebrating early.
Terribly sorry. Yes. But yeah, the house happened. The
Um,
amazing Ian and Neil and Janie and
Neil and Janie and Emma, and yeah, so I tried the original there, and I can definitely attest. I was never a big fan of sort of the. I don't want to get myself in trouble with saying sort of brands that the main energy drink brand. I can never stand the taste of that, and so it's so nice to be able to have something that you can
it's
actually go,
nice.
right, this is going to give me a bit of
Yeah.
energy. It's not going to send me
No,
bonkers and do lally.
no.
It's going to taste great, and I'm going to be able to get on with what I need to do.
It's about the same as 1.5
Amazing.
espressos, and actually, marketing go is really difficult because I didn't want to call it a functional drink. But there's such a reaction to energy as a label. But really, it's got sugar and vitamins and minerals and caffeine. Yeah, if you went to Starbucks and got yourself a coffee and put some sugar in it, it'd be the same as a reaction, except mine's got vitamins and minerals and CoQ10 and BCAA in it. And then the other one's got no calories, no carbs, no sugar in it. But it's just a functional product. It will do what it says. And again, it was partly a feminist thing that pushed me to that, because I found that everything aimed at me, at my demographic, at my age, and my gender, pretty much said, "Oh, do calm down. Have some chamomile. Try some lavender. Have you not had some yoga? Why don't you have a warm bath?" And I know when I've looked at the marketing for kind of the big energy brands, their marketing is targeted 18 to 34-year-old men. That's what it's targeted at. That's their open marketing policy. And then everything else coming in is not being honest. I saw a company that's just, or a product that's just come to market. I won't name it, but it begins with a B. Just come to market. It's in all the major supermarkets. It's Lithuanian. And it says, ditch the sugary energy drinks, ditch this, ditch that. But 3 of the top ingredients are all caffeinated. It is exactly that. It's just kind of like, well, just say what it is. So that's why this is called, and it was called functional energy. And again, you end up with these 2 spaces. You've either got the functional healthy drinks, or you've got the energy drinks, which are considered really bad for you. And I'm just trying to bridge that gap to something that's a bit more honest.
Colette, I've got 2 more questions before I let you go.
Yes.
The first is, the most important, is where can people go and find out more about you? There's so much more that I wanted us to cover, which we won't have time for, because I know you've obviously got a lot to do. But if they want to find out a bit more about what you're doing, what you're up to, and where they can buy Myth or Goat, where should we send
Okay,
people?
so my website. Go to my website. So myth.co.uk, goat.co.uk, and you'll hear all about us, what we do, even down to like who does our packing and things like that. We've got quite cool 3PL. You'll hear a bit about me, probably a bit about my dog Mabel, a bit of a chatter when I get going. And you'll also see the stockists on there, but you can order direct from us, and our warehouse will send it out. That's still probably the easiest way to get a product. It does take a couple of days to arrive. We are still reliant on Royal Mail. So it's not Amazon, it won't be there just before you've hit send, that kind of, oh, look, it's arrived, not even ordered it yet. And we're setting up a subscription model for Goat as well. So all of those things. And there's a newsletter, and you won't get bombarded with a newsletter every week from me, because I still have to actually write it myself. And I do it about once every 6 weeks when I remember. So it's not AI. It's not. I don't think people realise, but I don't have a team. It's just me. So everything is just me. So I'll do it when I get round to it. But the fulfillment, we now have a proper fulfillment centre that's all automated. So order online, and you'll read all about everything we do on there.
Excellent. And hats off to you. As a one-woman band, I understand just how difficult it is to try and get everything done, and to do it to the standard that you
Yeah,
want to be able to be proud
yeah,
of, to present it to people. And sometimes it is better just to go, right, I can't write the
yeah,
newsletter this week because I could send it, but it'd be
yeah.
crap, and I don't want
And I
to do
have
that.
had other people come in and do things for me, cost me a fortune, and they were just a bit shit. So I was just like, I don't
Yeah.
want you to. I'd rather it wasn't done or I did it myself, but I don't want you to do that because
Yeah.
it's just not what I think.
Last question, Colette, and this is one that I ask everybody that comes on the show because it is about spreading the low no love around the world and showing people that there are fantastic drinks for however you choose to drink for however long. So I'm not sure what the weather is like in North Yorkshire at
Honestly,
the
raining,
moment,
it rains every
but
day. It rains all the
oh,
time.
okay. Well, then use your imagination, and let's say you're off to a nice sunny
Yeah.
barbecue and you are bringing a couple of drinks along
Mhm.
with you to enjoy.
Yeah.
Obviously, Myth and Goat, top of the list.
Obviously.
Other than your own fantastic drinks, what other alcohol-free beverages do you normally enjoy?
So me personally, I'm quite partial to a decent red, or a decent bubbly. So
Okay.
I like French Bloom. It's really good product. I like the Teetotaler red. I like the Carl Young red. Really like that one. And none of these are because they're fancy or because I understand the nose or because they smell like petrol. It's just the ones that I like. And I like Amanda Thompson's, the Naughty Rouge. I like that one. My husband, he, excuse me, tends to like the beers and the lagers. So he's a big fan of Unlimited. He really likes that. Anything made by Mash Gang, they're great. I was reading a post by them the other day actually, and they were like, "Oh, all this noise, it's all piss in the morning," and I just thought that was so true. It's just I just think that's the funniest thing. He also quite likes
Yeah.
Heineken Zero, if I'm honest. So I've got a lot of friends who like the Guinness Zero. There's a thing you can do with Guinness actually, where it's like a Guinness cocktails, and if you so there's a big thing with Guinness and Malibu. So obviously, if you use zero Guinness and white myth, it does the same thing. It's really cool.
Oh,
I tend to mind,
interesting.
yeah, I tend to mind my calories a bit more than that. So I tend not to drink things like that. But they're the things that I would take. Me personally, I would want a decent red, full-bodied red that doesn't taste the wrong side of Ribena.
And great suggestions there because that is the one area that people often ask me about is what decent alcohol-free red wines are there. So
Carl Young,
great suggestions.
yeah,
And Carl Young and Naughty, and so there are definitely out there, and there are brands that are working really hard
yeah,
on getting the wines up
yeah.
to the same levels and standards as the beers and the spirits in the
Tom
low no space. But
Proctor.
it's a challenge.
Tom Proctor at the Alcohol
Uh-huh.
Free Company, I think. Tom Proctor. He's got a great range of wines, like really good, and he'll do mixed boxes. And I think if you're going to go looking for, I'm going to try something, I'm going to have a look around this, yeah, then that would be a really good place to start.
Amazing, amazing. I will make sure that everybody can find that information as well as where to find you, where to find Myth, where to find Goat. I'll put that in all these show notes and descriptions and various places that people go to find out information. Colette, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been a really interesting conversation. I'd love to invite you back on the podcast another time
Anytime.
once excuse me, perhaps once the next three drinks in your range are released, we can have a chat about those. But it's been wonderful having you on, and thank you very
Thank
much.
you for inviting me. Have a good day.